Now, I gotta be honest, guys. I gotta be honest, okay? You know me, I'm as honest as they come. The past 2 stories that we did were both related to, like, the underworld and, like, demons. And, you know, if there's one thing I want out of today's stream, it's, say it with me, no more hell. Okay, so I'm gonna go to writing prompts over here. Short prompt. I look down to my horror. It seems as though okay, nope, not going there. Sorry, I don't want to talk about that on this stream. Maybe other people on other streams will talk about that, but not here. We are strictly not going to talk about worm penises on this channel. That's where I'm drawing the line. No worm penises. Say it with me. No. Nope. Let's keep going. So here are the 3 prompts that we pulled out. But I think I'm really dead set on the superhero story. I think the superhero story is actually the better one here. There are 3 main characters in the story. There's a superhero, right, which we are going to put here. So here's the superhero. They'll be doing the superhero pose like superheroes do. Anyway, there's superheroes, so here. This is what superheroes look like. Yay! Okay, so that's the superhero. And then there's 2 other people in the story. There's a villain with little evil eyes because they're a villain. And a little frowny face because they're a villain. And they'll be doing this with their hands on their hip because they're a villain. And then there's also the sidekick. And the sidekick is just standing there because he's a sidekick. Okay, perfect. Whoa. So he's just standing over there as a sidekick. Wow. Surprised at everything. Okay, so we have these 3 characters, right? So initially, there has to be some sort of relationship between the sidekick and the villain. And obviously, there's a relationship between the sidekick and the hero. The idea is that the hero has a power to delve into people's subconscious minds and modify them in some way. So it's not quite mind control. What it does is it's more like a behavioral modification. Because he had this previous relationship with this particular villain right here, he decides one day, maybe years after they have defeated this villain, he decides to visit in jail and see how this person's doing. And he realizes that this person is completely different than they used to be. It's not that the person has lost all of their negative attributes. It's that they lost not only their negative attributes, but the positive ones as well. You know, like different tics and mannerisms that made them and made them unique and made the sidekick like that person to begin with. And he has to slowly come to realize that the reason that happened was because of him, and in particular because of the superhero he was supporting. So let's just start writing. And we're writing and writing and writing and done. All that glitters. I found myself running through the hallways of my old school. I opened door after door looking for someone I didn't know. At least I didn't know anymore. He had changed. Maybe I had changed as well. I was no longer the little child dependent on everyone around me. I was no longer dependent on him either. At some point, after what felt like hours of exhaustive searching, I slumped into the wall in the hallway next to my old locker. I don't know why, but I heard something at that time, a voice from my old friend asking if I wanted to hang out that afternoon. I then knew immediately where to go and what to do. I took a breath and slowly made my way to the old chemistry lab, where there was a small hatch leading to an attic space we used to use as an unofficial clubroom. The teachers all knew about it, but it still felt like our own little secret, a hideaway from the rest of the world. We would spend hours there every day, just being kids, maybe playing games, maybe throwing rocks off the roof, maybe just chatting. There's always so much to talk about when you allow your imagination to run freely. I put my hand on the doorknob and paused for a brief second. I couldn't quite place the emotions I was feeling in that moment, but I felt my heart beating through my chest. Why would he be here after all this time? Why would he come back? He left me, right? I had changed. I was older. I had a job to do. I opened the door and saw a little child sitting on the chair next to the window. He had jet black hair that was a little too ruffled, green eyes, and a book in his hand. I knew the book. It was The Adventures of Ponyboy and Robin. More importantly, it was my copy. He looked at me and said, "I was waiting for you to come." In that moment, I heard someone rushing behind me, a familiar set of footsteps carrying a familiar figure through the doorway. He was wearing a bright red cape with a blue suit that vaguely matched. It was Dr. Illusion, the hero here to save the day. He boldly laughed and said, "Miss Derry, I knew you could do it. To think he was hiding away at your old school. What a good find." I then looked to the kid sitting next to the window. He had transformed into someone else entirely and was now wearing a purple trench coat with glasses and a mask obscuring his face. It was Mr. Plum, the villain currently terrorizing the town that needed to be stopped. Mr. Plum said nothing. He just continued reading my book next to the window. Dr. Illusion then placed a hand on the villain and said, "You're coming with me." In that moment, I blinked, and the world changed. I was no longer in the school with my old friend. We were back to reality where Dr. Illusion was handcuffing Mr. Plum and pushing him into a police car. Dr. Illusion has the power to dive into the subconscious minds of anyone, and I, as his sidekick, can come along for the ride. We've been on many adventures before and certainly plan to go on many more. But what happened next stuck with me for a long time. Mr. Plum, my old friend, looked at me and said, "I'll get you next time, Dr. Illusion and Miss Terry." On its surface, this should have sounded normal. It's what villains say to superheroes when they're apprehended. But this wasn't just any villain. It was my friend, the person I'd spent so much time with in the attic, the person who I relied on for emotional support, the person I shared all my books and hobbies with. He looked at me as if he had no idea who I was. I tried to shrug it off and act like it didn't matter, but it did. No matter how much time passed, I couldn't forget the way he looked at me that day. So a year later, I visited him in the detention center. We spoke, separated by a thick glass window, which somehow felt fitting given the situation at hand. I came as me, not Miss Terry, me. He came as him. He wasn't allowed to wear his supervillain garb in prison. I asked him about his life, about what happened after school, about why he became a villain, about anything I could think of. He always gave me vague responses, completely different than the kid I used to know. Near the end of the conversation, I said, "I know it's been a long time, but I appreciate being able to speak with you like this again." He then looked directly at me and asked, "Who are you?" It was then that I realized something that I had been missing until now. Dr. Illusion doesn't just dive into the subconscious of the villains he's fighting. He actually directly attacks their brain. That day when we fought Mr. Plum, we had stolen something dear from him, core memories from his youth. In particular, all the memories related to the attic and related to me. It wasn't just that we had drifted apart. I had stolen myself from him. Overall, I'm relatively happy with how the prompt turned out. I quite like it. I think it turned out really well. Also, I'm really glad that we don't have to talk about hell today. Again, no more hell, no more hell, no more hell. Thank you guys so much for coming in, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye, YouTube. Bye-bye.